It's time for Side Scrollers with me, Stuttering Craig.
You decide when you lose, not other people.
And Blabs.
I like pickles.
And co-hosted by our friends from around the internet. If you like common sense, hit that thumbs up button and, of course, the subscribe button. And join us Monday through Friday live at 11 a.m. Central Time. And now, broadcasting from our homes, it's time for the #1 gaming and entertainment podcast on God's green earth. It's time for Side Scrollers.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Oh, welcome on out to Side Scrollers on YouTube.com and Rumble.com and Twitch.tv. What's going on, everybody? Happy Thursday to you. Stuttering Craig, welcome to the #1 video game and entertainment podcast on planet Earth, broadcasting Monday through Friday at 11 a.m. Central Time. It's good to see everybody. Man, we got a good one today. I am beyond stoked to get back into our final live interview, possibly on the show. We're going to do interviews moving forward, but they're all going to be video on demand. So today, I'm actually really excited. It's our last live interview with a true firecracker. A trailblazer, if you will. Superstar comedian, the one, the only, Chrissie Mayr. How are you?
Hello. Oh my gosh, Craig. It's so exciting to be here. And I can't believe I'm your last interview of the year.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's only so many more days left, and we're off next week. Yeah. So, you know.
Oh, yeah, I didn't mean to make it sound like you're slacking. You're doing great.
Big time.
I can't believe how fast the year has flown by.
It has. It has gone by quick. And like 2024 sounds like the future, you know, but so does 2023.
Every year it sounded like the future since 2000. I'm still adjusting from Y2K, really, personally.
Oh man. Okay. Hey, do you remember like Y2K? All that nonsense was going on there?
Barely. Well, of course I wasn't even born yet, as we all know.
Good call.
But I just remember vaguely my grandma being upset that like her car wouldn't turn on in the morning. And but she also still had a rotary phone in her house. It was nothing compared to all the many other crises we've faced since then.
That's a new year, new crisis. Several crises, always going on. I remember people were like, the computers are going to turn against us, and they thought it was going to be like Terminator, and they're all going to all of a sudden have eyes and shoot lasers out of themselves. It was going to be awesome. But it never happened, obviously.
I wish someone could have been like, here, look at this. And then it's like fast forward in time into all the creepy Boston Dynamics robots. Like, no, this is what you have to be afraid of. And like, right. Oh, holy crap.
Like if you were to go back 20 years and show everybody what people are seeing, like the idea that I'm talking to you right now and I'm in Texas, you're over on the East Coast. And like just the idea that we're having this conversation in real time with video and audio. Go back 20 years that people are like, what are you talking about? This is insane. Like it's crazy. The technology has been nuts. But well, anyways, glad you're here. Obviously, we're going to have a really good discussion about you, about your life and everything that's going on. Why don't you just kind of fill everybody in? Like give us like the wiki version of you and your career real quick before we get into the good stuff.
Yes. Well, I'm a stand-up comic. I've been doing stand-up since about like 2010, 2011. Always had a full-time day job, sometimes 2 jobs while I pursued stand-up on the side. I actually, when I graduated college, I really wanted to be a reporter. So I interned at Dateline, NBC. I don't know if anybody remembers Stone Phillips, but yes. He's exactly how he is on TV as he is in person. And I was like, wow, this is boring. I don't want to work in news. I give myself credit still. I don't know how I was able to do it, but I reached out there was only one female writer on the staff at Late Night with Conan O'Brien at the time. And this is back when they were in New York before they moved to LA. Mm-hmm. And her name was Allison Silverman. And I asked about getting an internship, and I was able to get myself an internship for the following year, my senior year at college. And it was easy to commute back and forth. I went to school at Fairfield, so it was just a really easy commute. Got college credit for the Dateline internship, and then same thing with Conan. And that's when I realized, okay, like, well, comedy is really more my scene. These are more my people, even though it's not like I was helping them put together sets. I mean, I was printing out rundowns. I was getting coffee and lunches and dinners for people, your task would be like, oh, Conan forgot his credit card at this bar. Go fetch it. And I'd be like, wow. I'd be like, wow, I was chosen for this very important task. Or like, please restock the kitchen or the front desk with Conan's favorite gum or yogurt or whatever.
Okay,
Like,
let's hold
wow.
on. Let's stop. Let's stop right there. Okay, the intern knows these things, though. That's the thing. Is you're right. The intern has all these menial tasks. So, what is Conan's favorite gum and yogurt and all those things?
He
Surely you know.
likes like bubble flavored bubble gum. I forget, like now I kind of forget what the brand was, but it was bubble flavored bubble gum.
Bubble
And it was
flavored, like bubble flavored bubble gum.
yeah, like pink flavored, like
Okay,
like versus like
pink.
a minty or a cinnamon.
Right.
Pink
Okay.
flavored. And
Okay.
it was vanilla Stony Brookfield Farms yogurt. He really liked that. But who knows? This was a few years ago, so his tastes may have changed. And the best part was kind of bonding with the fellow interns. Like I remember this one girl, I think her name was Melissa, and she was specifically Max Weinberg's assistant. It was her and this other person. I guess he got to have like his own separate one or two. And we would make jokes like about how high maintenance he was. She would be like, I forget the other intern's name, but we would joke that like it was her job to like Lainey, you got time to carry Max Weinberg to the bathroom, or like Lainey, you need to chew his food for him. Like we made the dumbest jokes.
Just baby bird it.
It's just so funny. Like their impression was he just wasn't that nice of a dude. And Conan, I would just see like here or there, he would just be like just a shock of red hair running through the office. It's not like we got to chat very much. I spoke more with the writers, and a couple were like really great, like Brian Stack, who did a lot of the impressions. He was real nice. Jose Arroyo, I remember he gave me a book about like comedy writing. And these guys were like, well, if you're interested in doing comedy at all, you need to get into improv. So after I graduated college, I started improv at the UCB theater, which is where everybody was going who wanted to get scooped up into like an SNL.
Well, UCB is big though. UCB is a Upright Citizens Brigade. That's a very big comedy troupe.
They were doing great until the pandemic, and then they had to close down. I think they went bankrupt, but they had a good run. And a lot of people, I still just wasn't really sure what I wanted to do, but I just was like, okay, improv is the next step. And the people who were doing well from that improv scene, like you'd see them in commercials, they'd get scooped up. Yeah, maybe, it was, I think Maggie Carey, she became like a writer, and I think she ended up with Bill Hader. I wonder if they're still together. And then Bobby Moynihan got scooped up for SNL. So I was kind of beginning classes around the time that those people were kind of blowing up. And Chris Gethard, too. He was like one of my Improv 101 teachers. He started this group, I think, it was Charlie Todd who created this group called Improv Everywhere, where they would just film people like getting onto a subway train, and then one by one we all take our pants off and we're just sitting there in our underwear, like acting like nothing's wrong. Like that stuff was so fun for me to do. And
it's like YouTube streamer or Twitch streamers who go out and cause all sorts of chaos. And
it was the first like just sort of punking people in real life. I just loved that. I thought that was fun, and it did give you a kind of like sense of community. But again, like, what are you going to do for a career? That was not a concern at the time. And then just did all the classes, a team. Then I went to the Magnet Theater, which is another improv theater in the city. All the classes, a team. Then I did a one-woman show that ran for about 6 weeks at the Magnet Theater. And then I started doing stand-up finally in like 2010, 2011. And I was like so nervous to try stand up, even though during my internship at Conan, like Liz Mealy was in my intern class. She had been doing stand up already. And so was Ellie Kemper, who went on to be on The Office, and Mary Michael Coleman, who she met at that internship. He was a writer at the time. So it's cool looking back and be like, oh, wow, I like kind of knew all these people.
Yeah.
Yeah. And all the while, like still like working a full-time job. I would work till like 5, 6 o'clock and then leave, go to whatever improv class for 3 hours and then go home. Or sometimes you hang out at a show and then go home. Same thing. And then when I started stand-up, you work till 5, 6, 7 o'clock at whatever job. And then you hit like 3 mics or something, and you get home like anywhere between 11 and 2 a.m. And then you wake up the next day and do it all over again. And I did that for years. And that's just what you do. It's kind of just part of the grind. And I never was really thinking about a career. But that's why I always kept a job, because I didn't want my parents getting upset with me, because I was like, they were like, we paid for this college education. You got to do something to keep health insurance.
Right.
So that's what I did.
Let's take a step back really quick. Let's talk about the news thing, because I have a degree in journalism as well. I've been in newsrooms and such, and your newsroom was considerably, Dateline is it's a very big show. I mean, we're talking about this is a very big show back in the day. Why news first and foremost? What drove you to be like, yeah, I really want to do news? And then what was the point where you're like, yeah, okay, not news?
It just seemed like the thing to do. Like, I guess there was something about being on camera that I liked, and I just thought, like, what are jobs that you can have? I was a communications major, like media studies, so I knew I didn't want to do sports broadcasting, because I remember there was a semester, and I was a women's studies minor as well for some reason. There was a semester where I took both sports broadcasting and ecofeminism, and it was the complete opposite. Like in the sports broadcasting class, I was the only chick. And in the ecofeminism class, there was only one dude. And it was just like, and this is back before the real, like, I think heavy liberal indoctrination really took over the colleges and universities. But the seeds were there for sure. I graduated school very much a feminist, like an SJW type. So it took me a few years to kind of unravel from that. And I didn't really have the best sort of guidance or counseling or guidance really. There was nobody that really took a look at my skill set and was like, "Oh, here's what careers you would be best for." It was really just my mom being like, "All right, well, communications, you talk a lot. That seems like a like a major you could do, and that might set you up for a lot of different things." I was kind of just always vaguely interested in TV and media.
Right.
And then my mom was like, "Well, just go to college. Maybe you could just work at a hotel in the city. That would be great." Like, that was her highest ambition for me, is that I would maybe one day work at a hotel.
Work at a front desk.
Yeah, and I had so many
Checking
of
people
those
in.
jobs. And it was once I started working in news, I was like, "Oh, okay, well, this doesn't seem that fun. I don't think I could let my personality out very much."
Right. Well,
Yeah.
you talk about all the different jobs that you've had. Obviously, being a life of a stand-up comic, I can't imagine it's a very lucrative one, especially as you're on the grind, right?
No.
Right.
God, no.
It's very, very hard to make money. So I'm sure that many stand-ups, it's a common theme as you're on the grind, working all these crazy jobs. Do you have a job in particular that sticks out as like the worst job that you did?
Oh my God, I have so many. There was a job where I worked for this production company that specifically set up for Fashion Week in New York City. So I would be in like a windowless office, like physically making wires, like and again, it was one of the situations where it was just like, I think I was the only girl. And I don't even know. I think I found so many of these jobs on Craigslist, to be honest, because or through headhunters, I guess. I would just be like, "Put me wherever. I literally will work any job while I'm figuring it out." So I'd be like physically just like making wires, or I'd be like gaffing down wires, like when we'd be setting up for like a Fashion Week shoot. My God, I worked at an all boys prep school on the Upper East Side in the admissions department. So just learning about how intense and how high stakes it is for someone, for like a kid trying to get into kindergarten in New York City. And I remember I worked pretty closely with the evaluator. Like, it sounds crazy. Like, who's going to evaluate 4 and 5-year-old kid, like
Right.
boys, like, like they're so little
Well,
still, but she'd be in there with a clipboard, like writing down, like, I guess you get a sense of like the strengths and weaknesses of the kids. Cause you can only, I keep saying cast, like it's a show,
right.
like it's showbiz. You can only cast a certain amount. You can only like choose a certain amount. And I remember this little boy came in, and these were like celebrities and like very rich, like UN officials, they'd send their kids to this school.
What was the
And like
cost for like admission to the school?
kindergarten, they called it pre-primary, was I think $36K a year at the time. And this was only like this was only a couple of years ago. So
Oh,
there, I remember, I think Trump brought Barron in. I think that's before I started working there. People were talking about, like Trump brought in like Barron to interview, but I think he ended up going to his alma mater. Well,
hold on. When they brought him in, I mean, this is New York
for like an evaluation. Yeah,
right.
You bring your kid in.
But did they go in with like at this point? This is before everybody in New York hated Trump, right? So
right. He was still just like people knew him from being in reality TV,
right.
So he wasn't like universally hated or beloved yet.
Okay.
And I remember while I was there, I think Bridget Moynihan brought in her kid that she had with Tom Brady. They ended up going somewhere else. So it's kind of it was kind of an exciting job. And like my mom and sister always worked in the schools. So I was like, okay, this is kind of a vibe I get. But I remember one nanny brought in this little like nervous kid for his evaluation. And the kid was so nervous. He just fucking puked all over the lobby. Like he just walked in and everyone's supposed to like line up and wait. And they're in a group of like 5 or 6. And then they play together, but they're being evaluated. And this kid just fucking like blew chunks all over the lobby. And I said to the evaluator, I was like, you don't like, does he lose points for this? She's like, yeah, there's no fucking way he's getting in. I was like, oh no.
Oh, poor kid.
She didn't say it like that. She said it more professionally than that. But she's like,
right.
yeah, no, that's not happening.
No, she just went.
Yeah.
Like,
and they threw a tarp over him.
That's right. Put him in a bag, threw him out the laundry.
And that's when I kind of realized too, I'd be helping out the receptionist sometimes on her lunch break. So I'd be sitting at the front desk and like just seeing like a couple kids like come down, like twitching to the front office, like, and then the nanny would drop off their Adderall. And I'd be like, wow, this is like, it's just like an interesting view of humanity. Like, I mean, not like I'd never been on Adderall, but just seeing like a 12-year-old kid like twitching down to the office to pick up more. I was like, oh man, like just the pressure.
Yeah.
That's on these kids.
4 or 5-year-old, elementary school kids. Oh, that's the worst thing ever. Golly.
I like really loved that job too. It was fun. And my God, I remember like the gym teacher kept trying to friend request me, and it was like kept trying to like hit on me, and I was just like, oh God.
Gym teacher, guy or girl?
Guy, of course.
Okay, just making sure. I don't know. I'm just New York. Who knows, right?
City. What are other fun jobs? I was a proofreader for like I worked for a couple different advertising companies, but I was a proofreader for a firm that specifically put in ads for plays. Like, jeez. I don't know. Proofreading is like the 1,000% wrong job for me. I was not super detail oriented. And then I learned, like, I've been fired from like at least 4 jobs at this point, because you have so many, you're going to get fired from them.
Right.
And you learn very quickly, like, never bring more and keep more at your desk than you can carry with you in one trip, right? So like, be prepared. You're going to be fired at one point. Just make sure you don't have more than you can carry in that one, teary-eyed trip back to the elevator.
Right. Oh, that's awesome. That's crazy. So, wow, I love it. Love everything about that. Obviously, when people hear you work on Conan, I think the natural first question is like, was it a good experience? Was it you mentioned you didn't really interact with them much, but the overall thought on working on set must have been pretty positive. And Extra Zero was curious that when you worked, did you ever interact with Robert Smigel? Was he always insane, or did you think that Colbert did that?
I would just see him in passing, really, like with Triumph. Everything's just like a whirlwind. Really, like the idea of an internship, especially at a place like Conan, is like they just let you hang around while everything happens around you. That's really what you get to be here and see what's happening, and maybe you order lunch for people or grab coffees. I remember it was the biggest thrill of my life. One of the writers would hand me a $20 bill and be like, because there was a Starbucks downstairs in Rockefeller like Center or like the food court. He'd be like, get me these coffees and then get whatever you want. And I was like, what? Because that was the first time in my life someone's like, get whatever I want. And then I thought I would be so fancy. I would get like a sugar-free vanilla skim latte. That's what I thought was a very fancy drink to get. But just someone handing you money and being like, go get these. And I had never ridden the subway before, so that was very intimidating. Even though I was like from Long Island, my family, we didn't really like go into the city. So just learning the subway was very intimidating, but that's something you definitely need to do if you're going to work in that area at all. And I was so lucky to even get that internship because during the summer, it's extremely competitive because the kids of all the executives and people who work at NBC are all vying for those internships because they're home. But
Right.
during the school year, it's really sort of limited to whoever can commute there, whoever like is close by. So I just felt so lucky that I was even able to get in.
Man,
And
that's what a different world, man. Like, what does a day look like? What's their call time, and what does their day end?
oh my gosh, I mean, I think we just had to get there like regular, like 9 a.m. And sometimes we would stay till like, yeah, maybe it was like 7 or 8 even. I remember one time I got to take a black car home back to Fairfield U, where I was going to school, and, like, that was also the coolest time ever. Like, man, you get to ride in a black, like a not just a taxi for free, but a black car for free, and, it was just so fun. I'm, like, laying down in the back. I'm, like, doing, like, snow angels, like, in the back of the car. I'm just sort of, like, feeling everything. I'm like, "This is so nice," and then when he was dropping me off at, like, wherever I was living, I think it was, like, a townhouse or something, I shared with people. I was like, "Can you just go really slow? Like, I need to see some people see me getting out of this car."
Make sure you honk a few
Just
times, let people
wait.
know.
Yeah, I'm just gonna take a long time getting out of this car.
Play La Cucaracha with your horn, please, as you guys.
Yeah.
Get
That'd been great.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, so you spend time on Conan, you do these internships, you start getting into the stand-up comic realm of that's what you're passionate about. You want to get in, you want to be a stand-up comedian. People don't understand how difficult that is to get on stage and everyone's looking at you and just going like, okay, make me laugh. Like there's expectations. So walk me through what like working through a set looks like for somebody who has no idea what that looks like. It just seems like a very hard thing.
Yeah, and it's also different. Coming up now is way different than it was coming up even like 10, 12 years ago. Like I was, it really was more like you go to open mics, you do enough to get like a 5 to 8 minute set, which you would do for like either a bringer show or a produced show. I kind of went the bringer show route because you'd have like a nice show sometimes every month, every couple of months, and you bring like whatever if you have friends left.
Yeah, what does that mean? What's a bringer show? Like
It used to be like every person you brought, you would get a minute of time.
Oh,
So
wow.
you would have to bring, like at least 5 or 6 people if you're gonna do that 8-minute set, and sometimes they would cut you. They would cut your time or cut you completely if you didn't bring enough or any people. But, yeah, that's what helps to, fill up the crowd, and then they give you, like, your tape afterwards, and then you're like, "Oh, great, and now I have this, like, professional 8-minute set of mine," and then you send that to either festivals or, really other show producers to try to get on more stuff, or, like, some people would post it online. And, I would just do a bunch of those until you kind of, like, get your skills up, and then you're meeting people along the way, and I think in stand-up, it's really about, like, your contacts, like, the people you're coming up with. "Oh, okay. You used to do mics with this guy. Oh, now he's doing a produced show. Now he's booking a show, like, in Park Slope," and you make that part of your routine. And, I think a lot of people and if you got sort of plucked for a late night set, maybe a few years in, okay, then you'd get a late night set and you'd kind of be set. It was almost that early 90s model of if you got a late night set, you'd be your career would really take off. You'd ultimately get kind of work your way into sitcoms or commercials or more late nights. You'd be kind of set up to do like a national tour.
So the grind was get to the late night set. The late night set allows exposure. The exposure allows you to get all the other things.
Right.
So when people say like the late night set going on, whatever, Johnny Carson, Jay Leno, Letterman, Conan, whatever, that was like the most important 3 minutes of their life.
For sure. It was like make or break. And it was also before your politics even really mattered. I think in my kind of generation coming up is when your politics really started to matter and made the difference between you getting these spots or not. And then of course like the censorship was sort of cranking up there in like the 2010s. So
what happened? What happened there? Why did people
I
all of
probably
a sudden
came in at
start?
like not the best time.
Right. Well, I mean, we'll
I think
definitely
it sort
get
of
into that.
correlated. I think it a bit started correlating with, they talk about the golden days of YouTube, like the golden years of YouTube, which I'm I'm told it was before I really got into YouTube. Much was like what the early 2010s, maybe like 2015-ish, like when you could kind of put anything, or even like 06, 07, 08. I think maybe between like 05 and 2015 were like golden years of YouTube, and then they started to censor people based on their political points of views and things like that. And I found like in stand-up, I was a bit in the running for a spot on Colbert. I had been speaking with the booker, and sort of like it feels like a courtship, you're both kind of checking each other out. Like maybe you meet for drinks, you talk about your set, you start submitting tapes, they make tweaks, you record new sets. You see, it's a lot of back and forth. And even there are a few folks I know, like Dave Landau, who were also in this process, and then just kind of, and I can't remember if he just got tired of waiting around or it just didn't work out. But it's like there's so often in comedy where you think you're going to get a big break and you really can't get excited until it's a done deal. Like
Right.
there's so many things I've been checked out for, in the running for, or like, which is why it's like you can't post about something till it's done already, because anything can happen. And it's great. I mean, it's like it really humbles you, because it's basically you're signing up for like 10 years of continual rejection until something happens or you make something for yourself.
What was the biggest rejection that you felt this, throughout your entire career? I'm sure there's something that you felt like you're like, I got this, and then you had it up until you didn't.
It's like it's just little things. It's like you're gonna. It's little things that are like that crack me up too. Like I really thought I was gonna get this one commercial, but I was like, you know what? It was for herpes medication. It's probably for the best. Like I guess I don't really need that as part of my brand. Just for like different shows. Like I don't know. Honestly, I feel like I've had so many rejections that there's not one that sticks out of my mind as being like the biggest one, because you truly just get over it. You get used to it.
Right. Rejection is part of the game, for sure.
You come to a place like, okay, whatever's meant for me will come to me, and I don't feel a sense of competition with other people, because like no one's doing and saying exactly what I'm doing. So,
well, along the same lines, Hayden has a really good question. It says, what was it like your first time on stage? Do you remember it? And what about your biggest bomb night? You hear that from people all the time. Like you're going to bomb even when you have a great set sometimes.
You bomb even like portion, like, well, at this point, however many 13 years in, I'll bomb like a single joke or something, and then you get them back. I have never had a set where I have like bombed the entire time. Like even just starting out, you maybe have one or two jokes that go pretty well, and you might have sets like, maybe it was like low energy. I just have never walked away from a set feeling like it was a complete disaster. No, that's wrong. I was in Syracuse a couple years ago, and my dad showed up. My dad surprised me and came to this show. It was supposed to just be my uncle, my aunt, and maybe someone else relative. And he showed up, and I was like, fuck. And it really threw me off. I was really distracted, and like I really muscled through the set. Like the jokes that were funny, but it's just your energy has to be in a certain place. You have to be present. I was so distracted, and it was like it felt horrible. Like I'm sure people laughed, but like I guess I would consider that a bomb, because it was absolute hell for me. To just like you just feel like you're crawling through the set. And even like this was not a bomb at all. Since I've been pregnant, I was in Tampa a couple weeks ago, and I like I'm obviously the most pregnant I'd ever been on stage. And I remember just thinking like 2-3 jokes into my set, I'm like, man, I am really out of breath already. Like, what the fuck is going on? And I'm just like winded. And then I learned later on, like that's a side effect of pregnancy. Like you're breathing harder kind of all the time. And I just hadn't noticed it because I'm constantly doing podcasts and radio stuff for Compound Media. And I just like, it wasn't until I was on stage for like a straight hour where I was like, man, I could really sit down. Like this feels rough. Like what's happening? It was funny.
Oh, that's crazy. What about your first time on stage? Do you remember specifically that was?
I was doing bringer shows at the New York Comedy Club. So that was I remember like not a whole set, but yeah, the feel. And then I remember I was on at this comedy club called Comics. That was one of my first times on stage. That was on 14th Street. I remember my mom was in the audience. She was super supportive. And I had some like a couple of words, like keywords, like a word for each joke written on my hand. like right there. So it's like
Mhm.
when you're holding the mic, you can kind of like see what's next in case you. That's always been my biggest fear, is just getting on stage and completely drawing a blank.
Right.
And it was exciting. Like, yeah, like the lights are blinding your eyes. You can barely see anybody. And it's just like nothing thrusts you into the present moment like stand-up does. It's like you're just up there with your dick in your hand. And it's not even this feeling of like a crowd sitting there being like, make me laugh. I feel compelled to, like, it is my job to kind of win over everybody in the audience at some point. Like, it's my job to charm them, whether I'm in a liberal city or a more like red city. It shouldn't matter. Like, I will never blame the crowd for me not doing well. I think it's silly when I see comics doing that. And it's like, all right, well, you should be able to entertain whoever.
That's awesome. That's great.
Yeah.
Well, what happens when you don't entertain? Have you ever dealt with hecklers, and
Oh
what has that been like?
God. Yes, all the time. I had a pretty viral heckler moment back in May when I was in
Mhm.
Dallas. And that really blew up. There was a woman who did not enjoy my take on Dylan Mulvaney. In fact, it wasn't even my take. It was another guy in the audience, because I said, like, I was just riffing about Dylan Mulvaney because Keanu Thompson, one of my openers, we were joking, kind of looked like Dylan, and we had just come from Vegas. And I was like, oh yeah, we're walking down on the strip and people are asking Keanu what day of girlhood she's on. And then I kind of went to talking about Dylan Mulvaney. I'm like, how has it been a year of girlhood and like still no tits? Like, why no boobs? Like, no one's got more time and more money at this point than Dylan. Like, why not like get some skin in the game? Like, actually, if you're doing this woman thing, like, let's see some boobs.
Right.
And some guy in the audience yells out, because he's a man. And then I'm like, yeah, because he's a man. And then the land whales to my left are like, actually, no, she's a woman. And I look over and I see blue hair, which is like never something I usually see at one of my shows. Like, at this point, it's usually people who are somewhat familiar with me. So I was like, what are these people? What are these gals doing here? They take a wrong turn. Were they looking for the Red Lobster? Like, I see blue hair. I see like 300 pounders. I'm like, oh no. I was like, oh dear. And then I was like, it's okay. We can disagree. We live in America. Some of us can believe in reality and some of us can't. It's fine. Like, it's all
Right.
good. And they didn't like that at all. And like,
So
then you have this, like, when you have a real like heated heckler moment, your heart, for me, I fucking hate conflict. It's much easier for me to handle things on stage, but like in my day-to-day regular life, I really hate conflict. And so obviously you see people are pissed. Again, I'm thinking my job is to charm everyone in this audience, but at the same time, these people are now making a scene, and it is now my job to make fun of them and like point this out.
well,
And
you have the rest of the crowd is on your side at this point, right?
you're
So
kind of gauging that every time there's a heckler or a disturbance in the crowd, you're constantly reevaluating, like, is this worth acknowledging, or is it better for everybody to just move on with your material?
Mhm.
And you have to very quickly make that assertion, like, okay, was it like someone coughed, someone farted, someone spilled a drink? Okay, is that really worth stopping your material, possibly getting distracted and acknowledging it, and like, possibly embarrassing this person or whatever? And it's like, okay,
Right.
well, this person's, and then you have to be like, okay, if you have a very drunk heckler, are they gonna like run at you? Are they gonna throw something at the stage? Are they gonna get somebody to beat you up? So you're like trying to figure this all out. And I'm like, okay, these women are like very loud and they're not shutting up, and they're just deliriously liberal. And I was like, okay, well, we could probably just have some fun with this. And she's like, and then they kind of did calm down. So I went back to my material, and I noticed they kind of waited to finish their food. And I was like, wow, they've just made sure every last tater tot was gone. And I saw them get up and walk out. They get to the door. Okay, this is like how cowardly most people like this are. Get to the door and they go, "Fuck you, transphobe." And then I was like, oh, like, that's it. That's the best you can do. And I'm just
Right.
like, it was just funny to me, like how lame that was. Like, oh wow, you really got me, land whales.
Right. Wow. So is that the worst one you've had, or has there been
Was the
other
best.
situations? It's the best.
That was the best because I happened to catch it on I was recording my set in the back with my cell phone, so I was like, "Yes, they're right in frame. This is so great." People
See,
thought I paid them. I was like, "No."
well,
And where
that's
would I even
great.
find people like that? It was, maybe they got free tickets. I don't think they were clearly not Chrissie Mayr fans, but I'm also so surprised because I was the headliner. I went on last, so I had 2 openers, one of which was Alex Stein. Like, nobody in my lineups are like particularly woke. They're not like hardcore conservative or Republican either, but they're free speech, and they're all kind of edgy in their own way and push boundaries. So I'm surprised that they weren't triggered by anything any of the previous comics had said, and that it took just the topic of Dylan Mulvaney for these women to lose their shit. But
Right.
I don't know. I was, and then as soon as we were done, I was like, oh my God, did they pay their check? Like, I went right up to the waiter. I was like, please tell me they didn't run out on the bill, because I fucking hate when that happens.
Mhm.
And then the general manager was like, no, but they did like push all your merch off your table. It's like, great.
The inconvenience of having to bend over and pick it up and stuff.
Yes.
Hey, well, next
Yeah.
time you come through Dallas, I'll be there. All right. Which
January 25th.
guess what?
Woohoo. I'll
It's
be
a
there.
date. Looking forward to that.
I also was we were doing, and then sometimes as a comic you get very funny, like strange gigs. Like we had to do stand up at this in Jersey. It was Atlantic City. It was this beer festival in this huge, convention hall. And our gig was called like Shitty Jokes. And it was me and 3 or 4 other comics. And our job was to do stand up by the porta potties, like while people are waiting in line to use the bathrooms. And they had a stage. They had a stage set up right by the porta potties.
Funny bit.
And
Funny.
and
Not gonna lie.
we had to do comedy for literally, they just said, oh, we're like, this convention's like 4 or 5 hours long, and they're like, yeah, figure it out. So like between the 4 of us, we were like, okay, I guess we're each gonna do an hour, or maybe we'll relieve each other after a half hour, like relieve. And we're like, how is this gonna work? Like, how do you even do comedy for people waiting in line to use the bathroom? Like, you're just trying to, you are kind of like clowns at that point, like a true court jester, because nobody's in a place where they're actually fully paying attention to you. So I remember I would start saying things like, again, if you're just joining us now, like, these are the porta potties if you have AIDS and you're gay, and these are the porta potties if you're normal and clean. Like, you just every 20 minutes I would just like declare different porta potties for different types of people, just to see if they were listening. And then my friend Marie got on stage, and she's a big Vikings fan, and she just brought up the Vikings. Someone threw a whole fucking sandwich at her, like a whole, not even a dry sandwich, like a wet hoagie grinder type sandwich with like wet toppings, and it just spilled out everywhere. And I was like, wow, that could have been me. Thank God I don't talk about sports on stage. And but these gigs, like, some of them are they're considered hell gigs, but they're also really funny, and you remember them forever, because they teach you to just do the best in whatever situation you're in.
Yeah, I would just open with, and I would just go like, hey man, number 1 or number 2, and strike up a conversation, or maybe number 3.
Easy.
Who knows, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And in a sense, it's less pressure than a regular gig, because
sure.
you're just trying to
they're all going to relieve pressure. It'll be good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh man, that's so okay. Let's talk about you talk about like the political side of things and how people didn't care about politics, and then all of a sudden it did. How has that changed? You said when you were in college, you kind of left. You felt the little indoctrination, and you were kind of wound up, and you had to be unwound. Your words, not mine. So what was the moment for you where you're like, whoa, what? That just kind of left this place, and I'm looking around, and like, that was kind of insane. And then you get in the comic space, and you realize, okay, all of a sudden, I mean, are you not getting gigs because of being a free thinker, or not towing the line, or has it afforded you more opportunities?
It was kind of both. There was a sort of like comedy awakening, and there was also like a sort of personal awakening as far as my evolution in politics goes. Like, I think it happened a bit sooner, I think, in the dating world, because I graduated college like pretty feminist, pretty much like don't want a man. But of course, you're like in your 20s and you want to date, and so that's all kind of bullshit. It's like most people do want to meet somebody, and I started to date, like, I was dating like mostly like comedians here and there. And then when I met my husband, it was like just kind of a game changer. I think he kind of first introduced me to like Steven Crowder and what do people call them? Like intellectual dark web. Is that what they used to be called? Like the sort of Jordan Peterson world. And then I was like, I kind of realized, I remember we had this like argument when Trump was first running, and I was like, I think he was voting for the Libertarian candidate. I think I ended up voting for Jill Stein, but because I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. And I said to him, like, well, if you had to vote for either Hillary or Trump, which one would you vote for? And he was like, well, Trump. And I remember I like harumphed and like wouldn't talk to him for the rest of the night. And that was like, I guess that was what was that 2016? And that was not that long ago. And it was
long enough.
oh,
Lots changed. Lots changed in 8
not
years.
that I would vote for Hillary, but like just that I was so like not even unwilling to see what people saw in Trump. I feel like I've come so far. And then I joke, like it's easy to lose your grasp on feminism when you need an IKEA bed to be built or when an air conditioner needs to go into a window because you're like, you can't do these things on your own as a woman. You're like, all right, where are the men? Come back. I didn't mean what I said. I need you again. Just sort of like going through life, you realize like, oh yeah, men and women just need each other.
Right.
And it's a lot of bullshit. It's a lot of just like intellectual fluff, and it doesn't really apply to the real world. So it's just sort of in my like dating world and getting closer with my husband, I realized like, okay, like, yeah, this is a lot of bullshit basically. And then as far as my comedy career went, I think it was 2018. Well, after my mom died, August of 2018, I was like, okay, I really need to kind of throw myself more into my goals and work a bit harder. Because, when a big space opens up in your life, sometimes it's productive to fill it with something that's going to be good for you. And I started making appearances on Compound Media. I would just do like bit characters. And I really have such appreciation for Gino Bisconti and Aaron Berg because they had a show at the time called In Hot Water. They still have it. Gino runs the show now. And they just said, yeah, like, come on, do whatever you want. I'd be like, oh, I have an idea for like sort of a character. They'd be like, sure, come do it. They gave me such freedom. They wouldn't be like, contrary to my experience with trying to get a late night spot. It wasn't like, let me see your set. Let me see a million tapes. Let's go over this with a fine tooth comb. It was like, yeah, sure. Come on and just play, which reminded me a lot more of my experience in improv. And I was like, okay, that's cool. This feels more like the vibe. Not realizing or caring that Compound Media is like a free speech network and like what that even means. I didn't even care. I was like, well, these are the people who are having me on and giving me artistic freedom. So I don't really care what the politics is. So I would do more and more appearances. And then I remember there was a girl comic who had a Netflix credit at the time. She was very woke, very feminist, like classic, Brooklyn female comic. And she comes on and she gets into a fight. This was a different Compound Media show. She gets into a fight with Gino and a few others on the show about like appropriating Halloween costumes. And it was just an insane thing to get upset about. And she stormed off in a huff. And I watched, and I was kind of doing these funny characters at the time. I was like, you know what, maybe I'll come in later in the week as her. So I had this like long black wig, and I was like, I'll just come in as this girl, Kate. Her name's Kate Willett. Yeah, I'll just come in as her, pretending I forgot my jacket. And then I'm just so offended. I'll just be like on and off. It'll be really fast. And then all of a sudden they're kind of introducing me to the show. Like, oh, Kate Willett, she's back. And so now I'm thrust into this, like I have to do this character. And I just pretended to be like someone who's very woke and offended by everything. And I was just here to get my jacket. I leave. And Compound Media is a subscriber network. So the subscribers, like a lot of them loved it and said, oh, it's so funny. But it wasn't available to the public. So like Kate and her kind of friends, and someone would screenshot like me as her on the show with my wig and everything. People like, oh, look at Chrissie making fun of Kate. So that's when this sort of confusion set in. And Kate was like, yeah, are you making fun of me? Like she had messaged me like, what are you doing? Are you making fun of me? These Compound Media fans, they're not good people. One of them said I should get a railroad spike in the keister, like, because they were like pointing out that she was very uptight and not understanding the vibe of the show and getting offended over very little. Yes, there we go.
I'm just gonna say, she looks like I don't like to judge a book by its cover, but she does look like somebody who'd get offended over Halloween costumes.
Yeah. And you know what? Like, I honestly have at this point no ill will towards her. I'm sure she's got a great career. Like, it's funny, I don't really think about her very much until people ask me about my kind of origin story. But it's important to note because so she said, oh, I'm getting rape threats, yet she never actually was able to produce any receipts of rape threats. But she'd be like, someone said I should have a keister, a railroad spike in my keister. And I said, it's 2018. Where does someone even get a railroad spike? And that kind of upset her because I wasn't like immediately like on her side and be like, yes, male comedy fans bad, women good. And so that happened. And then I was like, you know what? wouldn't it be funny to come in as a railroad spike? So I wrapped myself in tinfoil like the next couple of days because she had been, I guess posting about this railroad spike. And then I came in as this personified railroad spike. I was like, my name is Spike. I don't want to be up anybody's keister. Like, I have a rail at home I care about and 6 little spikes. Like, I don't, just so stupid. Like, it's just someone, I'm just like doing my best impression of a railroad spike who's kind of just a hardworking dude, and then same thing. Compound media fans find it funny. Screenshots. Wow, look at Chrissie as this funny railroad spike. But Kate and her fans see that as me
Right.
doing an impression of the raping railroad spike. So then it just got worse and worse. And now I've been framed as this sort of anti-women, hate speeching, unsupportive, horrible person. And since she had a bigger following, she had the Netflix credit at the time. I had no major credits, like random shit like Wendy Williams show, but nothing like Netflix tier. So most comics and people looking to get ahead are going to go to her side. And these things kind of bubble up in like the lady New York City comedy groups and things like that. So all of a sudden I'm this horrible person.
You're the outcast.
I'm the
You're in trouble.
outcast.
Yeah.
So
all
that
right.
was 2018. And that I realized like, oh, interesting. Okay. It doesn't really matter. Ultimately, like you're going to get misunderstood in this business. And there's nothing you can do about it. And unfair shit's going to happen all the time. And then I came out as like an out Trump supporter, Trump voter for, I guess, 2020.
How dare you?
That was another layer of ick that I couldn't get off me. And then I was a January 6th and I went just to do man on the street interviews and cover the rallies because I had been to the previous 2 rallies out there in DC. And I remember this. I was only able to get out maybe one tweet as we were going to the Capitol. And this booker who I had worked with several times, like she booked this very well-known show that would be during Halloween time every year called Stick or Treat. And I remember January 6th, it was like right after this Stick or Treat show. Or maybe it was, I had done one just before and I was about to do one that following October. But like same thing, you dress up as a character or a comedian that's way more successful than you, like a household name, you do an impression. So it's like a big deal. And I'd worked with her doing these shows, but she quote tweeted me being like, I don't know what the comics in LA are doing, but in New York, they're storming the Capitol. And I was like, that was a moment too for me because I realized like, oh wow, people are going to go out of their way to misunderstand the events of the day and why people were there. And then I got so much shit like, oh, I used to do improv with Chrissie 10 years ago. Boy, she's really changed. People who like to claim that they knew you at some point. And the people that are doing this are never doing better than you. They're what I like to refer to as crumbs. Like I'm sure they're fine people, but in terms of my sort of internet world, they're crumbs. Like most of your trolls are crumbs. They always say the booze come from the cheap seats. It's never people whose career you admire. No one who's doing better than you. They're just ankle biters. And
man, you nailed it. Oh my gosh, that's so great. Okay,
but you get a lot. I saw a lot of these like, oh wow, she's really changed. Because in their mind, I guess I had, because I'd gone from hosting a monthly show at the Stonewall Inn, being sort of a fag hag as they call them. Not that I never stopped loving the gays, but I just went from the host of a show at Stonewall Inn to now a weekly host of a show on Compound Media, which was seen as free speech, which was seen as right wing. And that plus being an out Trump voter, plus being at January 6th really changed the type of people who would talk to me. And, you notice certain people stop getting back to you. Certain people stop associating, stop saying hi to you in public. And over not much, my sense of humor had not changed. I'm the same person. I just went from being sort of in this liberal gay comedy show host world to hosting on a show on Compound Media, which is seen as like, I guess, more right wing, more male dominated. And it was all those experiences that made me realize like, oh yeah, people are going to like go out of their way to misunderstand you if they think it'll uplift themselves, their own career,
make them feel better, give them virtue. You mean they're virtue signaling, Chrissie?
What? And then another thing was when I was like openly out about not when de Blasio put down the vaccine mandates for New York City, and they were like, well, you can't get into any kind of cabaret or club or restaurant without a vaccine. I was like, well, fuck this. I'm not performing anywhere that requires that. Thinking it was gonna be like, who's coming with me? Yeah,
Right.
we're all doing. No, crickets. It was nobody else for a long time. And then, people like Lila Hart came out. I connected with her over that issue. And then you eventually had like Jim Brewer, a couple of other bigger names say that they were not going to perform somewhere that had that mandate. That was another lesson too, because you're like, oh wow. I was like, comedy in Hollywood, the scenes are very intertwined, where most, I think, I don't know, I don't want to sound black-pilled, but from my experience, most comics do not really care about free speech. They themselves just want to get rich, get famous, get their bag, get their TV deals, and they don't really care about like fighting for free speech. And I was like, oh wow. Okay.
Whatever it takes to get them to where they need to go.
Yes, so many of them were using fake vax cards just to continue their status quo. They were definitely not going to take any kind of a stand against that. Not that I personally had anything against the clubs that mandated the vaccine. I knew they just were trying to stay in business, but I just was like, okay, for me, I'm going to look like a hypocrite if I perform at these places. So I'm just going to stick to the road and stuff outside of New York.
Right. So you mentioned January 6th. It's been portrayed, by depending who you talk to, some people say it was the death of democracy. Or some people say like it was a peaceful protest, right? You were there. I don't know anybody who was personally there. You just see the stories on it, but I've seen you say that you were shocked at how it was portrayed by the media. Would you like to go into that a little bit?
Yeah, my experience was pretty chill. Like I went with a girlfriend of mine named Riz Flex, who has a YouTube channel. She covers more like news and maybe more deep dives into possibly conspiracy theories and stuff like that. And like we had connected and we had gone to the November and the December rallies together, just like to have somebody to take the train out with and like share a hotel room with. And it's good to have like a buddy at these things. Because there's going to be like thousands of people, and just kind of like sharing tips on like, oh, like cameras, batteries, stuff like that. And I remember like there was always a schedule. It was like the night before, okay, there's going to be speakers in this main kind of section. And then the day of the 6th, it was like, okay, you're generally going to get there at 8. We wanted to get there earlier, but we thought we got there early, but then we get there, it's like hundreds of thousands of people already waiting.
And just to be clear, you were there to do man on the street stuff?
Yeah, just cover the events because I was there in November, December, and I felt the media had not covered them honestly. They would do like an early morning flyover, be like, wow, look, there's nobody here. This is a non-event. Trump really has no support. And then, hours later, it would be like a ton of people. So I could tell that the media was unfairly covering these rallies to begin with. And same thing with January. I thought January would just be another rally. I didn't think would be January 6th.
Right.
And so we just, we get there and, we have like our phones and like a battery taped to a phone, taped to a selfie stick. Like we're both doing a very low budget situation and just like a lot of footage, talking to people why they're there and realizing the people that are most passionate about not seeing this country slip into communism are people who have come, or their family has come from a place like Venezuela, who've actually experienced communism, who actually can see these red flags versus college students in their 20s who just think like, oh, this is what you have to do to be nice. And it's like, oh my God, they've just really confused being a good person with Marxism and communism. And they've done a very good job at confusing the youth. So yeah, we're just there doing man on the street interviews and it's fucking freezing cold. Like we're just trying to like, how much more battery time do we actually have? And I remember Trump came out to speak later than the schedule had indicated, and we were like really cold. And so we're listening to him for a while. But then the next point was to go to the Capitol. And we're like, we should just start walking because we're freezing. And like my friend Riss is like 100 pounds soaking wet. So I was worried she's gonna get like hypothermia and die. I was like, let's go. Let's just start walking. Like, let's move around a little bit. And so we're just like, everyone's just marching to the Capitol. It was just fun. And you see people in costumes. And I have this on my album. There was a guy in a skeleton costume with a sign that said, I voted for Biden 9 times, which is fucking hilarious. And it's just people brought their kids and their pets. And there's guys, like selling Trump shirts on the corner. It was like this really nice vibe. And I think that was the first time I met Bryson Gray, hung out with him. He's just doing like impromptu, like singing and rapping, and people are like forming around him. It's like this interesting just sense of like community. And it was this cool energy to just be around like thousands of people who really care about this country and don't want to see it go to shit. And then you also see like, well, it's not just American born folks. There'd be always some lady who could barely speak English, like with a megaphone, like yelling about the CCP. And you're like, and you start to realize like, oh wow, there's lots of people have a vested interest in maintaining this country. And so we're just walking over to the Capitol and we're kind of hanging back for a long time. Again, this is like, there had to have been 1 million people there that day. There's just so many fucking people.
Real quick, sorry to interrupt, but when you said the next step was to go to the Capitol, right? Was that a planned thing, or
Yeah.
was that Donald Trump told us to go to the Capitol?
No, it was a plan. It was on the flyers. It was on like graphics that had been circulating for a couple of days. It was always the deal. Like if you go to one of these rallies, like they have kind of activities, and in the past it was like, oh, go to this section. There's gonna be speakers from the walkaway movement, or go to this section. It's gonna be some moms group talking or whatever. So there's always like lots of things to do, and people.
But it wasn't like go to the. It wasn't none of the material said go to the Capitol and then storm it.
No, God, no. It was just like, oh, we're walking over the Capitol, because we're not like the first. It was not the first group of people to walk to the Capitol for something. I believe BLM nearly burned down the White House like just a couple months before, and that got very little fanfare. And the Pussy Hat Brigade, they walked into the Capitol building. It's like lots of groups have been allowed to go to the Capitol building and be way more destructive and I guess and get away with it prior to January 6th. So it had all the energy of a high school field trip. It just was very much like a day in the park. And again, there's like hundreds of thousands of people lined up, just kind of slowly making their way just towards the Capitol. We spent a lot of time just behind a lot of other people, really, just like looking around. Like I had never even been to the Capitol building.
Did you go in?
No, I just was like, I didn't really it took me a while to figure out like the proceedings that were going on inside the building at the time. Like someone had a radio on, and I was more just interested in talking to the people than really just it sounds stupid to say like I didn't really entirely know what was going on inside the building at the time or why people wanted to get in. I just thought when I saw people scaling a wall, I just thought, oh, they want to get a better photo op. They just want to like climb this wall and be like, hi. It took me a while to realize like, oh, people actually like were trying to get in. For what reason? Why? And I remember I was on like the side of the building where you did start to see like some smoke bombs going off. You're like, why are they doing that? Like, it's just mostly people just standing around, like sitting on the lawn even.
Right. So how close are you to all this at this point?
Oh, I don't know. I have pictures from it. I was like I wasn't near the steps. I was like near the side where there was all this like scaffolding because they were setting up for the inauguration. And a bunch of us were hanging out in this sort of construction, like one of these false like temporary construction, little like almost like a trailer. And people were so excited to get in there because it was warm in there, and there was places you could charge your phone, and there were like these hand warmers, and like people were like, can we use these? There's a construction guy there. He was like, yeah, whatever, you guys can hang out. So that felt like a neat little oasis of just warmth and phone charging. I think some people found a box of hot chocolate packets. We were like so stoked. We're like, oh my God,
let's go.
We hit the jackpot. They were like bathrooms nearby. Like, we feel really lucky to have found this. And I remember the construction guy was telling us that it was going to be a different type of inauguration than in the past. Like it was going to be invite only and much, much smaller. And we're like, that's funny. That's different than usual.
So you're there, you experience it. In your words, it feels like a high school field trip, right? You go home, or I guess after this, you go back to your hotel.
The hotel.
And you turn on the TV and you're like, what?
I'm like walking back to the hotel. Yeah, we were starving. We stopped at this place and got like pitas, and then people are just kind of. And then as we're walking, and I saw like virtually no cops the whole day. Like maybe at one point I saw I have a video, like a line of a few cops, like just kind of really walking through the crowd to the other side. I'm like, I don't know what they're doing. I don't know. But there was no fences to burst through. There was nobody to break down. There was nobody to like push out of the way, cop wise. It was like really like a free for all. It felt like a field trip because people were able to walk and do whatever they wanted.
Mhm.
And as we're walking away from the Capitol building, okay, then you see like around, like we had to walk a long ways to start seeing like cop cars. It seems like they were all on the outside of the building, and like I didn't see very many at all coming onto the Capitol building property. Just you start noticing, oh, there's a lot of cops like lined up outside. Weird. Okay, the cars. We just didn't really think anything of it. Got food, went back to the hotel, and then you start like meeting up with your other friends and people and like YouTubers and just everyone's kind of talking about their experiences. And even then, didn't realize like things had gotten crazy for a few folks. It's really like what happened in the weeks
Mhm.
and months after.
So do you feel like since then like it's almost like when you catch a fish and you go, well, I caught a fish this big, and the next time you tell the story, oh, I caught a fish, it's this big, and then it's this big, and then it's this big. Do you feel like the fish has gotten considerably bigger over the last 18 months or so since it happened?
Who is the fish? Am I the fish?
The fish is January 6th as a whole.
Oh, yeah. I think the media, the powers that be wanted to shape the day a certain way. So they kind of gave their marching orders to the media so that they could shape it a certain way. And
I said 18 months. It's been like several years actually
it's
since
been years.
Yeah.
It feels like
Yeah.
forever.
Man.
And they were able to take, oh, wow, we got these people who went inside. Now we can really make examples of them. Oh, does it matter that they're grandmas? Does it matter that nobody had any weapons? Nobody did any kind of destruction on the inside of the building? Apparently not. Apparently it's all just about optics and making no time in our lifetimes have just a group of people who vote for a certain presidential candidate been targeted and vilified as much as Trump voters. And this was just like a perfect way to, I think they were just praying for more to go wrong than did. So they had to make what happened look like it was really, really terrible. And once they found, Jake Chansley, their poster boy, the lectern guy, they're like, oh, great, we can make these. And even though he's just like waving, holding the lectern, like you can't make that guy look violent. But they did their best. And it's just been really just beyond unacceptable how they've been able to just like casually ruin people's lives just by bursting into people's houses and throwing people in solitary and just making examples of people who wanted to support their country and who were not doing things that any other group hadn't done in the past. It's really like crazy making. You're like, wait, look at all these other groups that were allowed to go into the Capitol and protest, or look at all these groups that were allowed to stand on the lawn or stand on the steps and protest. It's just, well, it's not okay for you guys, so fuck you. And some of you are going to jail.
Well, people will say it's because they weren't trying to overthrow democracy, and it's like, all right. Have you received any I don't know, you hear about these people who are just the law enforcement just shows up. Have you received any word from anybody? Because
no, nobody's showing up.
That's
no,
good.
Nothing like that.
That'd be a very bad thing.
I make jokes just about at every, maybe less so now, but when it first happened, I would make jokes at different shows. Like, if you guys are feds in the audience, like, you get a discount on your ticket with code FED, or like,
Right.
Hey, drinks on me, guys, if you're following me around. Like, hey, if you're aware of me and following me, at least come to the shows, at least
right.
do your part.
Right. Well, let's move away from January 6th and talk about your content, because I think a lot of people in this space, they recognize you. You talked about dressing up as a railroad spike and various other people, but a lot of people would know you in this space in particular, obviously as Frosk, and obviously let me just kind of give a little preference here. This is the rap song, which is brilliantly made, by the way. Just play this just for a second. This is you in the middle as Frosk. Let's go play about 30 seconds of this.
Tights. You're about to get frostbitten.
Get him!
Fasten your seatbelts. It's going to be a bumpy ride. All you geeks and gamers better stop jerking off to me, okay? I smell like burnt hair and Julie, but that isn't stopping you. I fuck you like you're retarded because I think you're all retarded. I see the chat. I see you in the chat. Now jerking off to your girl. Frosk bitten. Go now press F if you're not jerking off. Frosk bitten. Go Frosk! Party like tights. Get him. Frosk bitten. Go Frosk! Now press F if you're not jerking off. I see the chat. I see you in the chat. Hit an F right now. Jerking off to your girl.
What? First off, I know you didn't make that song, but the material there and the execution of that is absolutely brilliant. I mean, just brilliant stuff.
Thank you. Props to Perry Chan, who, I mean, when I listen back to the actual like interview portion of Frosk, you're like, the song is there. Like the cadence or whatever I adapted trying to like figure out her character. It was a little bit of a sing-songy, like when I was trying to get her physicality down, it was a little bit of like a white rapper type, but it's like also she's this feminist. She's like not super feminine. So I just like the movements I would get down for her would not be feminine. It would be sort of like just from how she wears her clothes and like the process for figuring out how I was going to do her as a character. It's such a strange process. It's like you spend like hours just listening to her, like listening to her speak. Okay, like what words is she kind of exaggerating? What kind of accent does she sound like she already has? Like, how can I exaggerate this even more for comedic effect? And then I would just listen to her with the sound off. I'd be like, how does she move? How does she carry? How does she hold her face? Like, how does she hold her body? How does she do her hair? Okay, she's got a tattoo on her neck. All right, I can exaggerate that a little bit. And like, how can I take what's already going on with her physically and exaggerate it a little bit slightly?
So how did that come about? Like, was it something that you wanted to do, or did somebody on the show be like, hey, can you do this? Like,
she had her little like viral moment,
right,
where she was on where she did that whole like, oh,
on
I want to talk
G4?
on G4. I'm like,
Effectively killed the entire brand.
oh,
Right?
she did a great job.
Yeah.
Where she was supposed to talk about Red Dead Redemption. She's like, well, actually, I'm just going to talk about sexism in gaming. And it was this moment. And again, like I said before, I'm like very inspired by unstable women. And it was such a moment. I was like, I saw these clips. I was like, who is this chick? I was like, oh my God, she just reminds me of almost who I would have become if I had stayed on my path after college. Like if I hadn't like learned any better. Like I was like, man, I kind of like almost see a little of my former self in this chick. And I'm just like, who is she? What is she known for? What's her sort of history? Like, how did she come to be in this position? I'm like, oh my God, she's just grandstanding. She's just using this as an opportunity to take advantage of the fans to promote her own agenda, which is what we see and what we talk about so often on Friday Night Tights and like the death of our beloved franchises, taking advantage of an established audience, but using it to push like your own specific agenda. And I was like, well, this doesn't fit with the what people love about G4 and X-Play. And she seems like an unstable woman. And I was like, I think I could get a blonde wig. So the wheels are already turning. And then I think either Gary from FNT messaged me or I messaged him. And I was like, did you see this? And he's like, are you thinking what I'm thinking? Okay. Yeah. All right. It's going to happen.
Awesome. So you spent hours like literally studying her and just figuring out her mannerisms before it went live, huh?
And yeah, just exaggerating certain things. Like I noticed the way she said qualified sounded a little funny. And I just was playing with it. I'm like, it sounds almost like she's saying qualified. So then I would like in my impression of her, I said like, I'm not qualified. And that became like a thing, like people putting like koala emojis and just listening, be like, what is she exaggerating? What can I exaggerate a bit more? Because if I were to, there's no way, I guess for me personally, to just do a straight impression of somebody. Like I have to tweak some things up here and there. And sometimes an impression can morph into something like totally different. But I look at somebody and I go, what's funny about them and how can I make it more exaggerated and funnier? And I also liked God, the Frost character also became someone who would sometimes secretly let out if she was like attracted to somebody else on Friday Night Tights, or like she would secretly let out her true motivations. Like maybe she just is really lonely, or maybe she just nobody would sit with her at lunch. And like letting little truth slip. I don't know, and which I don't know. I don't know her personally at all. I don't even know if she's seen the impression.
Oh, I
I
guarantee she's seen the impression for sure. Well, so in
But she
addition
never
to,
blocked me, which
well,
was
you
kind of
should
cool.
reach out. I think that'd be one of the best things that she could possibly
I
do.
think I
Is
tried to. There was a time where quartering was looking like he was going to get to interview her, and it was looking like it was going to happen, and then she just bailed. I definitely tried reaching out though.
yeah, I would love to interview her, just to kind of talk about what she's done. Well, you did
She's
Frosk,
been
and
in hiding. Like, where is she? Is she in the same place they put Matt Lauer? Like, I haven't seen her.
just off she goes. But in addition, I thought this may actually have been funnier. I don't know if people have seen this one, but you did Greta Thunberg as well, and your Greta is spectacular.
Oh,
I wanted to kind of pull this
this
up and
was
just
great because I remember like after Greta kind of had her, and I was like, said to the compound booth guys, I'm like, we need to do a blue background, just like how she looked at the UN. Because I remember she had done this big viral speech, and I remember I was like waiting and waiting for SNL. I'm like, surely SNL is gonna parody her. Someone's gonna step up, and like they weren't. They just weren't. Nobody was, and I was like, well, fuck, like this is easy enough to do. So I bought there's like a wig store near Herald Square, near where the studio is. It's like shitty low quality wigs, but I sometimes go there if I need something. And I bought this like red extension. I know Greta has like dirty blonde hair, but I just bought this like red extension, like that I braided in just to do the long braid. And I had the other stuff. I just was like stuck a porg in my fanny pack.
right.
And I'm just spraying hairspray, like another little thing that's like hypocritical because I'm sure she's taking
Well,
at some point private jets and shit.
right. Let's watch about 30 seconds of this, just so people can see how on this was.
What do you have? Did you bring a fanny pack, Greta?
This
Okay. Would you like some cough syrup? My buddy has some.
this is all wrong. I shouldn't be up here. I should be in school on the other side of the ocean.
Right.
You have stolen my childhood with your racist and sexist humor, pornographic interludes, and excessive t-shirts for sale on the Compound Media website.
Are you saying they're excessively priced or they're excessive?
So this
excessive.
impression was like similar to what I do to F&T, where I cater it to that audience. I was doing a Greta impression, but like catering it to In Hot Water, like the show that I mentioned that gave me my first shot on Compound Media. It was that show where I did the impression. So it's like it's typical Greta-isms, but mixed in with the fans who watch this show. So at one point, like I say, because it's a running joke that you refer to like Black people as basketball Americans. So I say that in my impression, like there's, this constantly talking about the basketball Americans. So if there are things in that impression that don't really make sense, it's because it's inside jokes. Like,
Right.
Watch that show.
Well, but you got to know your audience, and that's the brilliant nature of it too. But I mean, you've done, obviously you've seen success with Greta and Frosk. Do you have any other you're pretty damn good at these impressions.
Thanks. It's such a specific, like getting ready to do an impression like this is like getting ready for a roast battle. It's so particular. Like you spend so much time writing the specific jokes. And like sometimes my husband Frank will help me write jokes for these characters too, because it's just sometimes if it's a time crunch and someone does some wacky shit, you're like, well, I gotta bang out an impression like in a few hours. Like he will help like write together. And then it's just watching, like figuring out what do I have in my, like, what clothes do I have? Do I have to order something to run to Party City? And it is similar to getting ready for a roast battle where you're like, you focus so much on one specific thing and then it's done. And it's not something you can really use again, unless you're like, okay, I'm going to bring this character back because they did some additional wild shit. But with a roast battle, it's like you work so hard for so many hours, you do the thing. And then it's like done. It's like, you sail a baby into a river and you're like, goodbye, baby. It just which is different than writing for your set jokes that you're going to use for months or years.
Right.
But it's exciting. It's really exciting. It feels like you're running a sprint or something.
That's great. It's fun to watch. And the way you nail it. It's just brilliant to watch. We only got about 15 minutes or so. So I want to be diligent in the questions I ask you. But one thing I actually am incredibly impressed about is this content house idea that you've done. I
Thank you.
I think it's really ambitious, and the fact you've been able to pull it off is really spectacular. Why don't you tell everybody about the content house and like was it your idea? Just give us the whole rundown on it because it's
Done
cool.
about 3 of these now. I think we did 2 in 2022. The original one, God, it started out like we rented a house in the Poconos just to go snowboarding and skiing and just like hang with friends for a weekend. And then we're like, usually over a drunk conversation is when the most brilliant ideas happen. But we're
Right.
just like, man, we're like, because all of our friends were like, we're so funny. It's like comedians from either Compound Media or the tech guys or just the fans of the show that kind of do become friends. It's just like our circle of people. And we're like, man, like this is just so funny. We could just like record this, like us like cracking up, like riffing on something. Like we should just record this. Like this could have been a podcast. This could have been like, and you think about reality TV and like how stupid so much of it is. And then this idea came up. I don't know if it wasn't like just me or it was a bunch of us being like, we should just see if we could do this and just do like a long live stream. And then we came upon like the idea of doing like a 48-hour live stream. So then the first one was in the Poconos. And it's usually a crew of about 10. And then it's the same thing, 48-hour live stream. Then we did the second one in Orlando, Florida, and we did that at the same time as we had also booked a show at the Orlando Improv. So like the stand-ups among the group could do a stand-up show. And it was also at the same time as the Orlando MegaCon. So you're like, okay, some people are going to be in town for this. And same thing, we invited a bunch of the like Geeks and Gamers folks over. And then you go, okay, who's going to be around for this? All right, come out to this house, like pop on the live stream if you want. And just like it's really just flying by the seat of your pants, like figuring it out. Just like, all right, how much just slowly ordering up equipment over the months. And I remember with the second content house, my YouTube channel got a strike right before. So I was like, I'm fucked. So we ended up using Compound Media's YouTube channel. And I think we did a little bit on Rumble too. And again, it's like a very unprofessional situation, but just
that's
the idea of like carrying out a 48-hour live stream, it's very exciting. And thinking about like who's going to take what shifts and who's going to cover the ugly hours. And like with this most recent one back in the Poconos, we're like, okay, we have a point system now. Like if you do the ugly hours, you get more points. Or if we see you cleaning up, you get points. We're gonna have to keep that in a more professional manner next time.
Well, right.
But it's a shit show for sure. And it's just like me and my friends. So it's not like a professional team is coming in. Like we're just figuring it out.
But that's the beauty of it, right? Is that it's authentic. It's authentically you. And that's what people want to watch. They want to watch you, they want to watch your friends. And if it was buttoned up and pretty, people wouldn't be as interested in it. Like I think that's the fun. That's the fun of it. It's awesome. It's great.
And fun too, and thinking of like, all right, like what other activities can we do? Like, and we do get feedback and we try to just make the next ones better and better. Like, all right, some people don't like it when we're just sitting on the couch the whole time. Some people, okay, well, all right, we had one where we went to a gun range, or we went roller skating, or we went to a restaurant. Like in this last one, we went to an escape room, which was like a 90s Y2K themed escape room. That was pretty cool. I thought it was gonna be so lame, but it was so much fun. And just
That's
having
great.
people like follow you around, and then I would try to get some sleep, but it's like it feels like it's my baby. I feel ultimately responsible for it. So you kind of wake up like in a 2 hours later, like, and then you turn on the TV or your phone. You're like, okay, who's on the stream? All right, someone's still there. My worst fear is always that like somebody needs to be relieved and they're tired, or they have to go to the bathroom and nobody's there to like sub them out. Like I remember my friend Marshall, I think the first content house, it was like 5 or 6 in the morning. And I just woke up to him yelling, I'm done. That's it. Hello, help.
That's great.
It was the funniest shit ever. And then they had caught him like sleeping on stream for a while, because it's like you think the hardest hours are going to be late at night. The hardest hours are really between, I think, like 4 and 8 in the morning, or 4 and 9 in the morning. And like at one point, my friend Marshall was just sleeping on the stream, and Frank is just like doing commentary over his snoring. like comparing it to like golf, like doing golf commentary over it. And then this guy Fealty ended up doing that putting it into a supercut into like a really just hilarious clip. And then that started, and then I ended up bringing this guy Fealty in, and he does the tech for all of these things now. And now he does my clips for my YouTube channel. And it's like, he was someone who was just watching as a fan, but he ended up like coming in and being involved with everything.
I love it.
It's
Love
been
it.
fun.
And that's the thing about this, is that you had an idea and you just kind of did it, and you're still figuring it out, and it's working, which is awesome. Let's talk about, before we get to some super chats, thank you guys for your support today and the gifted memberships and all that fun stuff. Do us a favor, hit the thumbs up button if you guys are tuning in at this point. We got just a few minutes left with Chrissie. Let's talk about the next step of your life. Obviously you're pregnant. We were talking about before the stream. You're going to be a mom. How has that affected things?
It's not a big deal. Pregnancy is so overrated. I've had no morning sickness, no cravings. It's pretty chill.
Yeah, but the pregnancy is one thing.
I'm blowing the whistle on pregnancy cravings. I think it's just a thing that women do to test their men to see, like, would you go at 2 a.m. and get me ice cream? I don't really want it or need it. I'm just gonna see if you would do it.
I don't really want pickles, but would you mind going to the store? Right.
It's become this thing that women have collectively decided, like, look, we're gonna be unreasonable, but we can get away with it because we've decided that you can turn into a monster when you're pregnant. No, I mean, was I a little bit of a monster at Turning Point USA? I think I had lower patience than I usually do, but maybe because I was coming off all the Content House stuff and I was just exhausted. And it's a lot. Like, I used to just carry around all my own equipment, like, no problem. I would carry like a 40-pound bag of gear and then like a bunch of luggage and stuff. But it's harder to like carry everything and set everything up when you're pregnant, because you're just like, everything is harder. So that part I will say is more difficult.
Well, you're about halfway through, right? So
yeah,
you said do in April, and I think your life is about, and I love talking to like new parents, right? And I'm sure you've talked to a million people about this, but like, you have your life before you have kids, and then you have your life after you have kids, and you don't really know what that new life is going to look like until that kid is there, because as soon as you hold that kid for the first time, it's like, okay, my life is new. It's brand new life. And all of a sudden everything I do is about them and not about me. And that's kind of one of those like, ooh, so I would love, maybe, you know what I'd do? I'd love to sync up with you like a year from now when your kid's like 6 months old, and be like, hey, how you feeling?
I'd be like, he's still alive.
Right.
Oh my God.
Here he is. Just told him up.
Right.
Right.
I'll be like, get back to work.
Get back to work, kid.
Get back to filing. Yeah.
Well, do you have any expectations about, or are you just kind of going into this like you do the Content House, where you just kind of figure it out?
Yes, it's going to be just like Content House. Just constantly making beer runs and snack runs. Well, I feel lucky and blessed that like I already feel like I'm not in a situation where it's all about me. Because I feel like having a business or having a stepson in your life, which I do, it's like you already feel like it's not already about you, and it's not like I'm 22 and I'm just like, like I'm older and like you can handle your shit a little bit better. So I'm actually like not. Yeah, I'm worried about like physically pushing him out and then like doing a good job as mom, but like I think I ultimately know that all that stuff I have this like just higher sense of knowing everything is going to be fine.
And you should.
Yeah.
It's going to be great, man. It's going to be great. I'm so excited for you. I'm excited for you. Like it's exciting to like, I can't wait. It's going to be great.
Where were you? Did you watch the birth? Did you like look into the eye of the storm while your wife was giving birth? Were you like in there?
No. I was in there, but it wasn't like, oh, look at that. It was nothing like that. No, I had no interest in that. It was hold the hand, be there, show support, and don't even look at what's going on down there, man.
I don't want anyone to see. I don't even want the doctors to look at that. I don't want anyone to look at it and think differently of me. I'm like, no, just how about
right.
I'll just figure it out. You guys just wait. I'm sure I'll just grab them out. And,
just
Yeah.
Just right there, popping out like a whatever. Hey, guess what? Mark came in as a member for 5 months.
Mark,
Chrissie is wonderful.
Mark was at the content house.
Yes.
Big shout outs to Mark because he took so many of the ugly hours. He was able to just like sit down on a stream really like 11 or 12 and go till like 5, 6, 7 in the morning. It was really astounding. Him and Keanu did the bulk of the ugly hours.
Yeah, Mark's great. And he says everyone should go subscribe to Chrissie. Obviously, if you haven't, please head over, subscribe right there. Look like bing, that's all you gotta do.
Ooh.
Pop it in right there.
Bing.
That's all you gotta do.
And then as soon as you take the window off the screen, you can unsubscribe.
Torgo came in with a 5, says Mary Simpmas to the Simpmas to the internet's best redhead. Have a blessed holiday and
Thanks,
stay
Torgo.
unbreaded.
I'm trying to stay unbreaded.
Push-up
Sometimes
says,
I look down and I'm like, is there a baby here? Or is this just what happens when you eat bread again?
oh, are you currently not eating any carbs?
I wasn't for like 2 years getting ready to get married. I was like intermittent fasting, doing like messy keto.
How'd that go?
Working out. It works. Intermittent fasting, messy keto / carnivore, and like working out till you drop is a magical recipe.
It's amazing how that works out. Push-up says, how would you roast an aging nerd who stutters? I'm assuming Push-ups is talking about me.
Oh, you don't really strike me as a nerd.
I'm a giant dork. It just kind of depends
Okay.
on what it is. Like Nintendo, old school video games, giant dork.
Okay.
Giant dork. But it just kind of like I'm not like into anime, right? You know, like there are certainly things that I'm a dork, I'm a big dork about, but I wouldn't say that it's like there are things that traditional dorks and nerds are into that I'm not really into.
You know what it is? It's like being a fan of something, I don't think makes you a nerd. I think I factor in like social incompetence and autism when I think of like nerds and dorks.
I was telling this story the other day. I went to a reality show. This is like a decade ago, probably longer. I went to this reality show casting where they were looking for like stereotypical nerd guy to do like reality show. They wanted to find the nerds, and I went and did this casting, and they're like, yeah, we can't take you. You're not nerdy enough. And I was like, oh, cool. You know, kind of backhanded, but all right. Shane came in with 5 gifted memberships. Thank you very much, Shane. Let's go. Matthew with the 4.99 says, Chrissie's the best. How did your breakup with the gay club go? Did they stop calling you back, or did they leave you with a dirty message? What's this about?
I broke up with them. Oh, he's talking about when I did a monthly show at the Stonewall, and I did that show for 6 years, which in the New York City entertainment world is a fucking eternity. And I just like worked when I first started out, like I would call and be like, can I, like, what's going on this Saturday? All right, I'm going to produce a show. And then that would do well. And the gig would be month to month. I'd have to call and like really work to get that show every single month till maybe a year or two. Then it was like now a regular Saturday spot. It's first Saturday of the month. But it's a gay landmark and also a national landmark. And it's not a comedy venue. So comedy is not their priority. So many times I would be the manager would call me up and be like, sorry, we got to move your show. We have a very urgent Madonna sing-along that has to happen. And I would be like, yeah, I get it. We need to do this drag show. And I'd be like, yeah, totally get it. Like, you guys are not a comedy venue. Like, you have your priorities. Like, that's and then there would be times where I would sell out the Saturdays. They would be like, well, why don't we just move you to Wednesday? And then you can just sell out the Wednesday. And I'm like, that doesn't really work like that. The people I booked specifically are going to be in town on that Saturday. And it got jerked around a lot. Probably should have walked much earlier, but I have like a really amazing ability to tolerate bullshit and when things are bad. So I finally was just like, I don't know. I don't remember how I actually broke up.
You say it's not you, it's me.
Yeah.
It's one of those, right? Miku came in, says Orange Band, not so bad. Thank you, Miku. Appreciate that. Trinoculus P says, Chrissie, after seeing Jim Brewer interviewing Victoria Jackson, SNL, when it was good, I thought an interview with you would be crazy fun. What do you think of her?
I like her. I think she's funny. I don't know that much about her personally, but I've always thought she was really funny. Jim Brewer is one of my all-time favorite comedians, like just a physical comedy genius, can talk about anything on stage and be hilarious. Like he's just one of my favorites.
I would love to have him on the show.
Love
Love it.
him.
Oh my gosh, he's spectacular.
Do people ask you about the post-its behind you? Is that like, do people, I mean, to me, it looks like a bit of a red flag to have this many post-its.
Well, there's arrows connecting them all, and they're circles. It's just a giant conspiracy theory. That's really what it is. It's just a giant. This is all support.
It's like you spin and it's like names of people. Like, this is my brown list.
Pretty much, yeah. These are all the people that will be offed in time. Yeah, absolutely. No. These are people who have supported the channel in certain ways. So
that's
through
smart.
Gifted memberships and subs and direct donations and things like that. So yeah, it's great. So yeah. So if you'd like me to turn it into a conspiracy theory, I gladly will. So if you're on the wall, sorry, I'm coming for you.
Yeah, I see there's a couple squares missing. Maybe some people were naughty.
Alan came in and says, I might have been at J6, but I cannot confirm. I can't confirm it was mostly peaceful. Don't believe the lies. Thank you.
Yeah,
Alan.
it was chill.
Hayden came in with a $20 super chat. Says, this is off topic, so maybe a better question for later. Chrissy, a lot of comedians post their crowd work online as to not burn material. Do you post your crowd work anywhere? You're great at it. The Vegas show was awesome.
I have a crowd work unspecial special that I posted on YouTube. It's from the show I did in Houston. I think it's back in from August or September. But you can go watch that. That's a show, like an hour of really mostly crowd work. It just kind of worked out that way because we were there for Anime Matsuri, and it was a lot of like Geeks and Gamer, Friday Night Tights types. So I felt like that was a specific, like an instance of like where I gotta really cater to this specific audience. Like I remember I was roasting like Gary and Quarter Black and Critical Drinker and like Cody. Like I had specific jokes about them to start the set with. So you can check that out. Yeah, I definitely like I probably should hire somebody to post more clips on my social media.
Got a few other super chats here real quick. DL says, Chrissy, what does your baby identify as?
You know, we're really going to let him choose his own gender. Like, we're going to see what colors he tends to go towards and determine his genitals by that, like any good parent should.
Push-ups doesn't want me to say that. I won't.
Dilate?
I will not say dilate.
Dilate.
C-Man came in, says Detective Craig. Yes, there you go. Thank you guys very much. And Lauren and CDI became members over on Twitch. Appreciate you guys popping in. I need everybody to head over and subscribe to the Chrissie Mayr channel as Chrissy tells us about her upcoming dates that she has coming up.
So close. I'm so close to hitting 100K. So close, guys. Please subscribe and thank you for watching. Craig, this was a good interview. Like I do a lot of interviews and you had very good questions. So I'll be, if you're in the New York City area, next Wednesday, I'll be at Stand Up New York for Gino Bisconti's birthday show. And then I'll be in San Diego January 5th and 6th at the Mic Drop Comedy Club. Lila Hart will be joining me out there. Thursday, January 25th, I'll be back in Dallas headlining at Hyenas. That was the scene of the Land Whale viral moment. Love that club. Lila Hart and Keanu Thompson will be with me at that show as well. And if you're in Jersey, February 24th, I'll be headlining TIFFs in Morris Plains, New Jersey. And then they're not going to let me fly anymore because nobody wants placenta, on their plane seats.
Hear that.
So
yeah, that's tough.
I'm going to do local stuff. Anything I can drive to, I'll probably just stick to that for a while until the thing comes out of me.
the child. Well, I'll tell you, I'm going to book tickets literally right now for the 25th in Dallas because I'll definitely be there. I've never been to like a comedy show before. I've only just seen them online. So
we'll be gentle.
Okay, all right, sounds good. Well, I'm gonna book it up, and I can't wait to see it. It's just gonna be great. Yay. And I encourage everybody to go to ChrissieMayr.com and go find a show near you so you can go support her as well and support her or them that'll be coming soon, which will be great.
Thanks, Greg.
You got it. With that said, guys, thanks so much for tuning in. Appreciate you guys popping in today. Remember, we'll be back tomorrow with Melanie Mack as we finish up 2023 as we move into 2024. Once again, we're off next week, so make sure you guys are here and celebrate the last show of the year. Appreciate you guys popping in. And remember, people are going to try to keep you down. Don't let them. You guys got a goal. Go get it. See you guys later. Bye-bye.